So in this video, we're going to show you how to jump into the camera world of AI, or basically person or object detection. And the software is open source, no cost to use it, and it's all local control with nothing in the cloud. Let's check it out.
Someone is at the front door.
So we've done some previous videos such as the Reolink NVR that did have local control for doing person and vehicle detection, and it did work great. But that solution I'd probably say is more for someone that wants an NVR that's just going to put it in the closet, plug it in, and kind of forget about it. But a lot of us always want more. We want to do things like have voice notifications when someone walks to the front door. We want our voice assistants such as Alexa or Google Home will tell us, hey,
Person entered front door zone.
all without having to check our phones or look at something. It's truly going to make your home smarter. Well, there are some other solutions out there, but yeah, it uses Windows, and then it uses another Windows app, and then it does this reach around Jones of MQTT, and then you might need some special goggles. And no, this is going to be with software that does run on Linux. It's open source, it's free, and it really just kicks ass. It works. It's very reliable. I've been using it for several weeks or even more, and I've done some live stream stuff on it. But today we're going to show you how to install that and use it in your home. So I know you're probably thinking, well, this all just sounds too good to be true. I need a bunch of stuff or special cameras or software. No, you can pretty much use whatever cameras you want to use as long as they do support, say, RTSP. That's some of my favorite cameras from the Amcrest or Reolinks, all kinds of different cameras that are local, support RTSP. And if they aren't local, get rid of them. Check out some of my other videos and get you some local control RTSP cameras. And their quality is much better, and there's no fees. So what hardware do we need? Well, if you do really have this crazy smoking CPU like we talked about in some of our unRaid videos that have so many different cores, etc., you might be able to get away with just using this CPU for the detector in the software called Frigate. And yeah, if I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, whatever, I'm just going to call it Frigate. It sounds like I'm saying something else, but no, I'm actually saying Frigate. Maybe they're just trolling me because they knew I would screw up the name. I don't know. So basically the hardware you need is going to be the Google Coral. And it is a small little processor, and they have different models of this. This just happens to be one that goes in a M.2 slot. The one I also have in my current server is a small M.2. That's a different type of key that goes typically in your Wi-Fi slot that's on many motherboards. Now they do have ones that hook up USB, so you could use this with a Raspberry Pi, but as the recording of this video, as you know, the logistics and chip shortages of many things are just quite out of stock at this time. Maybe they'll get better. So many different ways to put this little TPU inside your computer. You say, why is this so important? And these are very inexpensive. They're typically anywhere from $30 to $40, $50 US. Of course, prices are subject to change, due to demand, and hopefully we're not going to drive that demand too much. But basically, you can run this and not really have a fast processor, because all the AI is done straight on this little Google Coral CPU, or they call it TPU, for the AI. And it works crazy. I have 4 or 5 cameras in mine, and I don't see the CPU usage jump up at all, such as like when using the other solutions for deep stack. And no, I'm not beating on deep stack too much. And if you are one of those users that are using Blue Iris in Windows, we'll probably do an update video of the new exciting features of deep stack integrated with Blue Iris. It's definitely got a lot easier. But this video is about the Frigate and doing it all on Linux. So we won't be using any Windows. So before we jump on in, give us a like down below if you want to see more of these. Be a subscriber, whatever it may be. Shoot us a comment, let you know what else you may want to see on this channel. And if you want to join in, you can join the Patreon down below and throw us a little bit of coin. That helps us do videos just like this. And I do thank the current Patreon subscribers that we have now. We couldn't bring things like this without you. Thank you. Now, one side note I did want to add, if you don't want to purchase the Coral TPU, because like me, I was very skeptical on, hey, does this software really work, or is it crap, or whatever? I just wanted to test it out and use my CPU. Or hey, you may feel that your CPU is just going to get it done. You can actually go and configure really simple the software and set it to just use your CPU. Test it out. It's going to be the same. And then, hey, later on, you want to lower that CPU usage, add in your Coral TPU, set the settings, and you're done. You don't have to change really much at all with the cameras or nothing. It's pretty cool. So we will show a quick little thing on doing that add-on with the supervisor, but I only have it installed and working because I only have that 1 or 2 TPUs on my unRaid box. But everything else is going to be the same on how you use the software. So the documentation of the Frigate NVR, AI, whatever you want to call it, it's pretty good in some cases, but it sucks in other places. But that's why we're here, to show you and kind of work through some of those tough spots. Now we'll skip through all this stuff of all the notifications. We'll get to that later. How it works, it's just magic. Don't worry about it. So for the HASOS or HAS.io, whatever you want to call it, supervisor, it's not too bad to do. You would just take this link, jump on over, and go to repositories in the add-on store. Make sure you add it. That will add the Frigate HAS.io add-on. And you should see it somewhere in the list. If not, you can just search for it and do the install. Now, for it to start, you're going to need to have the Frigate YAML file in the root of your Home Assistant configuration directory. I do like the way that they did this. They didn't do it all in the configuration tab because that would just be an absolute nightmare. I wish the Zigbee to MQTT guys did that, but that's here nor there. Now for the unRaid users, it's pretty simple, especially even to install the drivers for the Coral TPU. If you just go look in apps and do a search for Coral, it should show the accelerated drivers. And simply come in here and hit install plugin, and it will download and install, and that's it. Don't even have to reboot or nothing like that, and it's installed. You'll notice Frigate is also right there. Go ahead and click install. Now there is a big massive wall of text because you can map in a NVIDIA card, like you can find one right now. Now, a lot of things are already filled out for you by default, which is cool with these Docker container templates. And yeah, Teddy, you can say I did say container. This is where things will get different because say if you have a little beater hard drive you want to use that's not in the array because you don't care about, having a parity of some clips, or if you do want it in the array, that's all up to you, but you don't want to save those clips in some other small location or something you don't want to write a lot to, say some special SSD. It's all going to be your decision based on your system. So do keep that in mind when you're installing this. Same thing goes for the recordings, because also you can do 24/7 recordings. The RTSP password, that's going to be, say, a password that you would just go ahead and send to all your cameras. And say you would set up a second user on your cameras, say just as a viewer only. You can't change any settings. Then you would use this password here, and that way you wouldn't have to put it in the YAML files. But there's all kind of ways you can do it. The TPU mapping, we aren't using USB here, so we don't have to pass it through, but I've just left it default when I'm using the M.2s, and it works fine. On my system, I didn't have Intel either at that time, so I just left it as default as well. Now, one thing it does show you, there's a temp fs, and I did apply that to /temp. That's actually just going to be RAM, and I do have enough RAM on my system, so I don't have to worry about that. But if you don't have enough RAM, you may not want to do that. So you're always welcome to come in here and add stuff, change it, whatever, after the fact. And you can leave the check mark if you want, but it probably won't start up correctly because the config YAML is not correct. So for the other folks that aren't using Supervisor or unRaid Docker, there's your file for Docker Compose, all right here, or Docker Run, however you want to do it. All the details, everything are right here. It's pretty simple, and they do have some good documentation on that part. So get it installed and join us in the fun of the configuration YAML file. Yeah, it's all done. The configuration is going to be all in YAML. At the time, there's no GUI to do this. Maybe potentially there'll be some awesome developers that'll see this video and jump in and help make an awesome little GUI that you can just go in and pick your cameras. That's the beauty of open source. Of course, you will want to put in your MQTT information. I left the topic prefix, Frigate, client ID. Of course, you need to put your user ID, password, and left this default. Now, I will leave a link down below of my sample file because I will tell you I did struggle a little bit with getting things correct in my YAML file at first. And I do appreciate Dead End helping me out because definitely I was at a dead end and he fixed that, even though his name ironically is Dead End, but whatever. And if you do need some help on some of this, be sure and jump down into the Discord link and come ask for help in the cameras channel. And if you're nice about it, I'm sure someone will help you out. Now for in the YAML where the cameras go, you're going to list every camera inside here. In my sample, I just have one, but once you set up one, you can just copy and paste like I did and do your multiple cameras. Now do think about your naming convention because you can have one camera name and then you can have multiple zones in one camera, but they cannot be duplicate names. For instance, I have front yard here. You may have a section that you want to know about, hey, who's on the sidewalk? Is there someone on the sidewalk? So maybe you would call that section sidewalk. But then you had a section that was the front door. But those would all be unique names. They would not be stepping on each other. So just think about that when you're naming things. Now for the actual cameras, you will need the full RTSP path. Now this one here is a sample for an MCREST. If you don't know your RTSP link or full URL, there are different OnViv query tools that you can use, or you can just simply Google it and find some other forum or some other person was talking about it and pasted it or whatever. You'll notice this one has a substream type is 1 and 0. 0 is the full resolution, and then 1 is the substream. And this is going to be based on your camera. Looking in the GUI, it was set up for substream 704 by 480. And if you don't know the actual resolution, a really cool tool for being able to look at the resolution and even test your RTSP link here is use VLC and just connect to it using the network streaming in VLC, paste it in, it pulls in cameras, and it works great. And then you can pull up the media information and see the exact codec information, the frames per second that it's using, and the resolution. Now, one thing that is kind of confusing for some folks, is say you do have a 704 by 480 for substream, and say it's doing frames per second 20. You'd want to think, hey, I need to put 20 in here. No, you don't. That's actually how many frames per second it's going to apply to the actual motion detection. So you may find that 5 frames per second works great. By all means, put it in, use it. It's going to lower your CPU usage time for doing motion detection. Now, of course, for the clips, you want to get that full resolution, and it will just grab it, and that's why I use the 2 paths. And you're using the detect for the substream, and I'm using the clips for the full mainstream. Now, the RTMP, that would be if you're going to feed the camera feed back out of Frigate, say to feed to the Home Assistant, GUI, or whatever it may be. And well, I just don't use that, so I set mine to false. But of course, you may want to do something different because you're not me. I wanted the clips to save when I get detected, and it captures 5 seconds before and 5 seconds after, if I can even talk. And it only does it on the clips on person. So it's very flexible on what you can do, because say if you wanted to put in, I want the clips for car as well, but I want to detect person, car, and say dog. But I don't want the clips for dog. Well, then don't put it. The snapshots, that's going to be the little JPEGs. It'll put the timestamps, etc. It'll how often you want to retain those, etc. They're just JPEGs, so retain them for a while. It's pretty cool stuff. And then down at the bottom is, hey, what do you want to detect? I have person, cat, dog, and then I do have car. It's commented out. Of course, you want to comment stuff out, just put the little pound sign, or if you're younger, the hashtag. And last but not least, you do want to put the detectors. And that's pretty much it. And then you'll want to go start the add-on container or whatever, and hopefully it does start and connect to your camera. Now, there's always different ways to tweak performance out of everything. So I highly recommend taking a read of this optimizing performance once you get kind of familiar with how Frigate works. And because there's some things you may find in some cases where you want to use the full resolution of your camera to do the detection and use the same resolution for your recordings. Or you could do the substream mainstream stuff. It's just going to be based on your installation and cameras. Just going to try it. And what I say by mask is, for instance, in this one here, I don't want to see all this road. And you can see I have a mask on it. So what I did was apply a mask to the road here. And then another big key is if you have a timestamp on your camera, which is not a bad idea. That's one of the things I talked about in my Blue Iris video, was to let the camera actually burn in the date and time on the image itself instead of your software. Because Frigate's going to see it, and it may impact some of the motion detection. Mask out the seconds, the minutes, or whatever, and that way it won't see that time changing. You'll go into the mask and zone creator, and this is going to be the same if you want to add in a zone. And simply all you do is just click around and you'll add another zone. So we're going to add, so we would go ahead and click, 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 click. And I do find if you get this weird thing, well, then you just have to figure out how it wants you to click the different lines and get it over. And it does take maybe a little bit of playing around, but then you can get your mask going. And then once you do that, it will make the YAML code for you in real time. And all you have to do is simply copy it, paste it for the camera you want, and you will need to offset that over, otherwise the YAML won't work. But just line it up, and that's all. And it will create those masks. You will need to save the file, and you will need to restart Frigate itself, and it'll pick up that new mask. Now, of course, I know you want to see how it works, right? Yeah, all this thing of configuration and everything. Once you get things done and restarted, go have a ball, run around, and it's amazing how well this thing works. And I look at the events on the front yard one, And you do get the filters up at the top. You can filter by the camera. You can filter by the zone. I only have one zone right now. And then you can filter by the label. Say you want to see everybody on bicycles. And we have none, but you want to see everybody on all cameras. Boom, there's all the bicycles. And then say you want to see that clip. Go ahead and click it. And it will show you the best image. Now, I didn't have a clip assigned to it, so it did not record the video for that. And since you do have a clip, it will automatically play, and it will show exactly what happened in that clip along with the percentage of the person. Pretty cool stuff, and it works great on the mobile browser as well. So we'll look at dogs, and no, don't tell if your wife or kids or whatever have long hair. I did find it does sometimes call them a dog. Just don't let them know about that, okay? That'll be our secret. Now, if you're not good like me at writing YAML code, there are some sample notifications that you can go through here and do your notifications. I even passed it through to Nabokasa, fine. Or if you want to expose your Home Assistant, however your settings are, you just go through and you can copy and paste this stuff and change the few little things in the conditions or whatever. They're great little examples. Now, one last thing with the Home Assistant users, there is an official integration. It's in a custom repository, so you can just copy it into your custom components, or you can use HACS. But once you do that, you can see you've got like 90 entities, and you just go in here and hit reload if you have to. It's really simple to do once you start to get things in line. And all the entities, there's so many different ones, from all the different zones, the process times, the stats of all the different ones. It's even broken down of like the front door cat, the front door dog, and it has all the pictures and the clips, and you can come in and use the media browser in Home Assistant as well. So you could come in here and go to clips and see all the fools here, just like I showed you, the same exact thing, play it right here in Home Assistant itself. How awesome is that? We didn't have to do anything crazy. It just pops in for one of the integrations. So you can see here, a back door, we had a person, and that's not just motion, that's the person motion. It showed all the no motion detected right there using the simple binary sensor. So cool stuff. Let us know what you do with all of your sensors in Frigate. When a car comes down a driveway, or a car hits a certain zone, or when a person goes in a zone and different conditions, it's just, you start to get crazy on all the different events and stuff you can do. It's just absolutely awesome that what you can do with this. I've been very impressed with this software, so hats off to the developers.
Ready to go flying? All right, let's go flying.
Somewhere by the end we'll see